The sun above the arena burned red. Dust danced in the air as thousands of alien spectators filled the massive stone stands. Their cheers were loud, their excitement wild. Today was not just another fight. Today, their champion Zalara, the giant would crush a human warrior. Zalara stood in the center of the arena, nearly 8 feet tall, muscles like coiled steel ropes under purple skin. Her tusks gleamed in the light, and her armor was made from the bones of enemies she had destroyed. Her red eyes scanned the crowd with pride. She had fought 63 battles, won all, killed most, shamed the rest. Then the human walked in. He wasn't tall, he wasn't glowing with power, didn't wear grand armor or carry a heavy weapon. He had simple black combat gear, short brown hair, and a calm face. His name? No one even remembered. Just the human. The audience laughed. "Is this a joke?" one alien shouted. "Where's the real challenger?" Another barked. But the human didn't flinch. His boots made soft steps in the sand as he entered the ring. His eyes stayed on Zalara. No fear, no tension, just quiet focus. Zalara smirked. "You're smaller than my training pet," she growled across the arena. "I'll break you in half." Still no answer. A loud horn blasted from the towers above. The gates sealed shut. The fight had begun. Weapons dropped from the ceiling. Axes, spears, chains, plasma blades. Zalara grabbed a double-headed plasma axe, her favorite. It hissed. With energy, she twirled it with ease, muscles rippling. The human. He didn't pick anything, just stood there, arms loose by his side. Zalara narrowed her eyes. "Pick your weapon, human," she said with a laugh. "You'll need one." Finally, the human spoke. "No need," he said softly. "You've already lost." That one sentence made the crowd go silent. And then Zalara roared and charged. The ground shook under her massive feet. She swung the axe with deadly speed. A flash of light, a crack of energy. But the human ducked effortlessly, like he had seen the move 1,000 times. She spun, swinging again, this time low. He jumped, still untouched. "Fight me," she shouted. But he was already behind her. Another roar.
Another swing.
Again, he dodged XY, single quotes, Lara growled, swinging with both hands, her strength causing shock waves in the sand. But the human moved like wind. No wasted steps, no fear, just calm precision. And then something worse happened. He began to circle her, not run, circle watching. Her, studying her. It wasn't defense. It was a trap. The crowd sensed it. The laughter died down. Whispers began. Why isn't the human fighting back? He's playing with her. Zalara's breath came heavier now. She wasn't used to missing. Toyed with, and the human finally struck. Just one move, stepped in close to close. She tried to swing, but her arm froze midair. He had caught her wrist. With one hand, he twisted. The axe dropped from her grip and clanged to the floor. Gasps echoed around the arena. Zalara tried to punch with her other hand, but he ducked under, swept her leg, and slammed her to the ground in a blink. The great warrior, face first in the dust. She growled and pushed herself up. Rage flared in her eyes, but the human was still calm. He didn't even press the attack. "I said you already lost," he repeated. She screamed in frustration and charged again. But her attacks were now sloppy, desperate. The human didn't fight harder. He just stayed exactly where he needed to, not flashy.
I'll fall.
Just perfect. Another move, another slam. This time he pinned her arm behind her back. Not enough to break it. It's just enough to control. "Get off me," she roared. But he leaned down, whispering something only she could hear. "You fight for fame? I fight for survival." Those words hit her harder than any blow. She stopped struggling. For the first time in her life, Zalara felt something cold in her chest. It wasn't fear of dying. It was the fear that everything she thought she was wrong. The crowd had no idea what was happening inside her mind, but they were watching something they'd never seen before. A human, holding down a legend, calm, patient, in total control. And for the first time in the arena's history, the alien champion didn't look unbeatable anymore. The crowd was still frozen in silence. No one could believe what they were seeing. The alien warrior. Zilara, the unbeaten, had just been slammed into the dust by a small human marine. And the human didn't even look tired. A high-pitched horn blew again. It was the signal to continue. There would be no breaks, no mercy. The fight wasn't over. Zilara pushed herself up, her arms shaking slightly, not from injury, but from something worse. Doubt. She had never doubted herself before. She had crushed beasts twice her size, shredded warriors with 4 arms, and snapped armored foes like twigs. But now, this calm, quiet human had slipped past every attack and humiliated her in front of her people. She let out a roar that made the dust shake. "You're dead," she bellowed, grabbing the spiked chain whip dropped earlier from the ceiling. The human didn't answer, simply rolled his shoulders and stepped sideways, never breaking eye contact. The arena master, sitting high in the stone tower, leaned forward. This wasn't going how he expected, and yet he didn't stop it. People were watching, not just in the coliseum, but across the galaxy. All eyes were on this human. The hunt had begun. Zilara swung the chain, screamed through the air. Fast and deadly. The human ducked once, then again. The chain ripped through the sand inches from his body. "Fight me properly," she shouted, swinging harder. The chain nearly caught his boot, but the human flipped backward. Landing on one knee with perfect balance, he still didn't attack. He just kept moving like he was waiting, watching. Each time she struck, he moved just enough, not more. Never less, his control was terrifying. It's not wild like a berserker. Not defensive like a coward, cold, clean, trained. Zilara's heart thudded louder in her chest. Her people believed humans were only dangerous in packs, using tech and numbers. But this one fought alone, using nothing but timing, instinct, and precision. And then it happened. She lashed out one more time with a loud cry. The whip arced through the air, but the human caught it mid-swing. The chain went tight. Between them, the audience gasped. He didn't pull hard, just enough to throw her off balance. She stumbled forward, surprised, and, in that moment, he let go. She crashed face first into the sand again. Gasps turned into stunned silence. Zilara slammed her fists into the ground in frustration. Her pride burned hotter than the sun above. She didn't care about scars, but humiliation. In front of this crowd, in front of her enemies, unacceptable. "You think you're better than me?" she spat. The human finally spoke again, voice quiet but clear. "No, I know I am." She charged once more, teeth bared, ignoring the pain in her limbs. But this time, the human didn't dodge. He stepped forward, right into her path. She aimed a blow at his head, one that would knock out a Gorvax bull. He ducked, lit inside her. Guard and drove his shoulder into her chest with a low thud. She stumbled, backwinded. Then came a sharp, fast kick to the side of her leg. She buckled. She growled and swung wildly again. But he caught her arm and flipped. Her massive body hit the sand with a heavy thud. The crowd erupted, not cheering, not laughing, just stunned. No one had ever taken her down twice, not even once. And now, this human, this tiny outsider, had done it twice in the same match, and still hadn't picked up a weapon. She coughed and rolled onto her back, panting. For the first time in her life, she saw stars. Not in the sky, but behind her eyelids. She blinked up at him. He stood over Hercom. Breathing steady, no taunting, no cruelty. He simply said, "This isn't about strength. It's about knowing when not to use it." Her lips parted, but no sound came. What did that even mean? It's all her life, she was told. Strength is honor. Crushing your enemies is glory. But this human, he was winning without destroying her. And somehow, that made it worse. He turned and began to walk away, as if bored. Her body wanted to stay down. Her muscles ached. But her spirit wouldn't allow it. With a low growl, she stood against, staggering but upright. "I'm not finished," she hissed. The human stopped, but didn't turn around. "You already were," he replied. And then he waited. He gave her a choice. Fight again and fall again, or walk away. But she was a warrior. She had to prove something to the crowd, to herself, to him. And so, she clenched her fists one last time. The next round would change everything. Blood trickled from the corner of Xylara's mouth. She wiped it with the back of her hand and looked at the red smear like it was a stranger. She hadn't bled in years, not since her first match. That time, she'd killed the opponent in under a minute. But this human, he didn't just make her bleed. He made her question everything around the arena. No one was cheering anymore. No chants, no laughter. Just silence, and the sound of breathing. It was like the whole galaxy had leaned forward to watch. Xylara stood tall again. Her limbs trembled. But not from weakness, from pride. She wouldn't surrender. Not here. Not now. The human, still weaponless, stood with one foot planted in the dust, arms relaxed. He tilted his head slightly. "You can stop, you've already proven enough." Made her eyes flare with anger. "I didn't come here to earn your pity," she growled. "It's not pity," the human said simply. "It's mercy." And with that, she attacked again. No screaming this time. No wild swings. Only sharp trained strikes. Elbow, knee, fist. She moved with the fury of her ancestors, bones cracking with every step. But the human was faster. Smaller didn't mean slower. He weaved through her attacks, slipping past every blow like smoke through fingers, and then he struck. It wasn't brute force. It was a lesson. He jabbed her right knee. Her leg buckled. He twisted her elbow joint. Her grip failed. He stepped and drove. His palm into her chest, just under the ribs. Her lungs gasped for air. And suddenly, she was on one knee. Not because she chose to kneel, but because her body refused to stand. The crowd let out a breath they didn't know they were holding. Xylara was down again, but still. The human didn't finish her. He didn't go for the kill. He didn't raise his fists. He just stepped back and waited. She looked up, pain flashing in her crimson eyes. "Why don't you end it?" she asked bitterly. "Why do you keep giving me a chance?" The human didn't answer right away. He knelt down beside her and spoke in a voice only she could hear. "Because you were never my enemy. This fight isn't about death. It's about truth." She blinked. Her chest heaved. For a moment, her vision blurred not from injury, but from confusion. Truth. What truth?
Ouch.
She had trained her entire life to become the strongest. She had been told that honor came through blood, through conquest, through fear, but this human wasn't fighting to conquer her. He was fighting to free her. And somehow, that realization hurt more than any wound. She growled low, ashamed of the tear threatening to fall. "What do you know of my world?" "My people," she hissed. "I don't understand what I must prove." The human finally looked her in the eyes, and this time there was no coldness. Only something alien to her, empathy. "You think glory is earned through breaking others?" he said softly. "But true glory, it's earned by rising when no one expects you to." Then he stood and turned away. Xylara remained on her knees, her heart hammering louder than the cheers of any victory she'd ever heard. From the tower, the arena master slammed his fist down. "Finish her, it is the law." The crowd waited. Tension returned, but the human didn't obey. He turned back and said loud enough for all to hear, "Then your laws are broken." What? Gasps swept through the stands. The arena hadn't seen this kind of rebellion in decades. Challenging a champion was one thing. Challenging the system, that was war. The guards around the ring readied their weapons. KSI. Lara saw it happen, and something inside her snapped, not in anger, in clarity. She rose slowly. Her body hurt, her pride burned, but her voice was steady. "No," she said loudly. "He is right." The guards froze. "What?" the arena master barked. Xylara stood beside the human now, still bleeding but tall and strong in a way that wasn't just physical. "This isn't weakness," she continued. It's something more, something stronger. And I want to learn. She turned to the human. Teach me. The audience erupted, not in rage or cheers, but stunned silence once again. This time, no one knew what the next move would be, and for the first time in a place built for violence, two warriors stood side by side, no longer enemies, but something else entirely. Zylara stood still beside the human, bruised and breathing hard, but with her chin held high. The alien crowd looked down from the towering stands and silenced ends of thousands of warriors, nobles and elders who had once called her unbreakable. Now, they saw her standing. But not alone. She had not won, she had not killed, and worst of all, she had not obeyed the law of blood. High above them, the arena master snarled through the speaker horn, his voice booming across the battlefield. This fight isn't over. Human? Finish her. She kneeled. She yields. Take your victory. The human didn't flinch. His eyes slowly rose to the tower where the master sat. I came here to stop the fight, he said calmly. Not to kill someone who's already been set free. The master slammed his fist on the command pad. Suddenly the sand shook. From the edge of the coliseum, 4 armored guards entered the ring, each larger than the human, holding shock rods and riot shields. The crowd roared with tension, unsure if this was justice or slaughter. Zylara stepped forward. Let them come, she growled, but the human gently touched her arm. You've already done enough, he whispered. She looked at him, confused. Why would he stop her now? Before she could ask, he'd walked forward, along toward the guards. The audience leaned in. The guards pointed their weapons at him. The lead one barked, "Kneel now, or die where you stand." The human stopped just short of them. "No," he said, "you should kneel." And then he moved. Faster than anyone expected, he ducked the first shock rod, grabbed the attacker's wrist, and twisted until the rod snapped in two. The second guard charged, swinging hard only for the human to step sideways, wrap his arm around the guard's neck, and drop him like a sack of meat. The other two hesitated. They had just seen a man disarm 2 warriors trained for death within seconds. The audience wasn't cheering now. They were witnessing something different. Not just a fight, but a message. The arena master's voice returned, now filled with panic. "Stop him. This is treason." The third guard lunged. The human didn't back up. He caught the shield mid-charge, dropped to one knee, and used the momentum to flip the attacker right over his head. The warrior hit the sand hard and didn't move again. One remained, but this one dropped his weapon and backed away. He wasn't just afraid. He understood. He wasn't looking at a simple human anymore. He was looking at something his people didn't have a name for. A calm storm. A silent force. A warrior who didn't fight for blood or applause but for truth. Zylara stepped beside him again, eyes wide. "You didn't kill them," she whispered. "I didn't have to," he said softly. "But why? Why risk your life to protect me? I mocked you. I wanted to humiliate you." He turned toward her, his voice low but firm. "Because you were never my enemy. Just someone chained by a broken system." She looked at the crowd. Her people had always cheered for domination. They respected only the ones who stood on top, covered in blood, standing over corpses. But now they watched in silence. As one human changed the meaning of power without lifting a sword, the arena master shouted again, "Zylara, by our code, you are to be executed for refusing the finish. You defy our ancient right." She turned slowly, lifting her voice with a strength that no pain could silence. "Then your code is already dead." The crowd stirred. No one had ever said that aloud before, but something in them shifted. A few warriors lowered their heads. Some nobles stepped back from their boxes. One old female in the audience dropped her war staff. Quietly into the sand it had begun. The death of tradition. The rise of something new. The human looked back toward the gate, led out of the arena. "Let's leave," he said. Zylara followed, her steps no longer heavy with pride, but light with purpose. Before they reached the gate, she paused. Then slowly, she knelt. Not from defeat, but out of choice. She bowed her head slightly. "I don't kneel to you," she said. He gently pulled her up. "Then let's show the galaxy something it's never seen before," said. And they walked out of the arena together. The gates of the arena slammed shut behind them. Zilara walked beside the human in silence, her large frame limping slightly, but her eyes clear for the first time in years. Her armor hung loose, cracked at the chest, stained with blood and sand. Her hands still trembled, not from pain, but from something unfamiliar. Peace. They reached a shadowed corridor behind the arena, away from the noise, away from the crowd, but even through the thick walls, they could still hear it, the confusion, the whispers, the rising voices of change. Zilara leaned against the stone wall and finally asked, "Why didn't you finish me in the ring? You could have taken my head, earned glory, even wealth." The human didn't stop walking, simply looked forward, speaking in a low, steady voice. "Because I don't kill for sport." That answer echoed in her head like a war drum in her. World mercy was weakness. Kindness was failure. To spare an enemy in front of your people was worse than dying. And yet, he had spared her. Twice, he sat down on a bench carved into the stone wall, finally resting his tired body. She noticed then the sweat, the small wounds on his forearm, the red patch near his ribs. He had been hurt badly, but he never showed it. "Then why fight at all?" she asked, still trying to understand. The human looked up at her. His eyes were calm. No fire, no anger. Just a strange kind of strength, to remind people that there's another way. She didn't know what to say. All her life she had trained. To destroy? The arena was her church, and pain was her prayer. She had never imagined honor could come from not breaking someone. She sat beside him slowly, carefully. The silence between them stretched. "I used to believe I was the strongest being in the galaxy," she admitted. He said nothing. "I crushed others, made them beg. And when they knelt, I didn't feel proud. I just felt empty. And I thought that emptiness meant I wasn't strong enough yet, so I fought harder, hurt more. But the hole never closed." He finally looked her way. "That's because strength doesn't come from forcing others down," he said gently. "It comes from lifting them up when you could have left them in the dirt." Those words hit her harder than any blade. A moment passed, and then she asked, "Have you ever killed?" He nodded once. "In war? When I had no choice." "And how did it feel?" His answer came without delay. Heavy. That one word was enough. She felt it in her bones, on her blood. A warrior who hated killing, and yet was better at it than anyone she'd ever seen. That was the most terrifying kind of power, and the most beautiful. Suddenly, heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Guard Zilara stood quickly, eyes narrowing. The human didn't move. He just watched. The guards arrived, 6 of them, armed, cautious. But something was different. Their weapons were lowered. Their leader stepped forward and nodded at the human. "You're to leave this planet immediately," he said, "by order of the Arena Council." The human raised an eyebrow, and her. The guard hesitated, then looked at Zilara. "She is free to go. No charges, no punishment, but she's no longer champion." Zilara didn't argue. She didn't feel like a champion anymore. She felt like something more. The guards turned and left. Without violence, the human rose to his feet. "Well, that's better than I expected. You just broke thousands of years of tradition, and they let you leave." He shrugged. "Sometimes it's not about breaking the wall, just showing others that it's hollow." That made her laugh quietly, for the first time in forever. Then her face grew serious. "Where will you go now?" "Back to my ship. There are others who need help, other places where mercy is still seen as weakness." She nodded slowly. "Then I'll come with you." He turned toward her, surprised. "You sure?" Zilara clenched her fist, but this time not for violence. "I don't know who I am without the arena," she said. "But I want to find out. Not as a champion of blood, but as a warrior of something real." He held out his hand. She took it, and just like that, Two warriors walked away not as enemies, not as strangers, but as something the galaxy hadn't seen before. A human and a former gladiator. Side by side. The stars looked different from the window of a human ship. Colder, quieter, farther away. Zylara stood with her arms crossed, staring into the black of space, watching planets drift past like dust in the void. Behind her, the soft hum of engines filled the silence, steady and calm, very unlike the coliseum drums she had grown up with. It had only been 2 days since they left the gladiator world behind. 2 days since she turned her back on everything fame, power, blood-soaked glory. Now, she was aboard a human vessel, and she still wasn't sure why. The Marine who had defeated her, spared her, and walked beside her, he hadn't asked her to follow, but he hadn't told her to leave. Either, in fact, he treated her like she belonged. That was the part she didn't understand. He had every reason to look down on her. She tried to humiliate him. She mocked him in front of thousands. She would have broken him had she been fast enough. And yet here she was wearing borrowed clothes, sleeping in a soft bunk and drinking warm soup from a metal cup. It all felt so strange, so peaceful, and peace to Zylara was the most terrifying feeling of all. The human's name was Riker. He didn't say much. He didn't brag, didn't try to impress her. He just worked quietly, checking systems, reading reports, patching small hull leaks, adjusting course. To Zylara, it was like watching a wild animal in a cage. This man had broken her in combat without blinking. And now, he was cleaning. Grease from a coolant valve, she finally asked. Why do you live like this? He didn't look up. Like what? It's like a ghost, she said. Like you're trying to disappear. Riker paused, then set the tool down and turned toward her. Because ghosts don't get called to fight, he said quietly. And I'm tired of fighting. That answer hit her harder than his punches ever had. Later that night, Zylara sat in the corner of the ship's common room, staring at a small device Riker had given her, a portable data tablet full of human history, philosophy, and old Earth stories. She scrolled through tales of war and peace, of humans who fought monsters and humans who became monsters, of kings who gave up their thrones and farmers who saved planets. She whispered to herself, "Your people are strange." Riker sat across from her, sipping a drink. "We're complicated," he admitted. She looked up. "You fight so hard to bleed. So much, but you build things too. You give mercy. You forgive." She paused. "I never learned how to do any of that." Riker nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time you did." Zylara put the tablet down. "Teach me." There was no pride in her voice, no fear either, just truth. Riker leaned back in his chair. First lesson, he pointed to the stars. "You don't have to destroy everything to prove you're strong." She looked at his finger, then out the window. She didn't reply, but something in her chest, something old, cold, and broken, shifted slightly. The next morning, the ship landed on a remote moon, supply outpost, peaceful, quiet, mostly humans, some friendly aliens, traders, farmers, mechanics. As Riker stepped out to refuel and trade, Zylara followed close behind. People stared at her massive frame, her scars, her strange eyes. Some backed away. Others whispered, but one little human girl, a child with messy hair, up to her with wide eyes. "Are you a monster?" the girl asked. Zylara froze. She didn't know how to answer. Riker crouched beside the girl. "She used to be a fighter," he said gently. "But now she's learning to protect people instead." The girl smiled. "That's cool." And she hugged Zylar's leg and ran off. The alien warrior stood, still speechless. It was the first time anyone touched her without fear, not because she was strong, but because they weren't afraid anymore. That single moment cracked something deep inside her, something that had been locked away behind years of battles, blood, and lies. She whispered more to herself than anyone, "I was never a monster." Riker glanced at her. "No, you were just taught by monsters." That night, as they prepared, To leave the moon, Zylara stood on the deck again watching stars float by. She was still bruised, still scarred, still unsure of who she was becoming. But for the first time in her life, she didn't feel lost. She felt ready, ready to walk. A different path, a human path. Not built on fear, but on something far stronger. Honor. Zylara stood barefoot in the training bay of the ship. The steel floor was cold, the lights dim. No crowds, no music. No announcers shouting her name, just silence. End. Riker standing across from her with his arms folded. This was not a fight, not. This time, this was something she had never done before. She was learning and she was terrified. A week had passed since they left the moon. A week since the little human girl called her a protector. That hug still echoed inside her like a heartbeat she didn't know she had. But now she was a student. The same Zylara who once crushed bones for applause. Al bowed her head and listened. Riker tossed her a wooden staff. "You know how to kill," he said. "Now I'll teach you how not to." She caught the staff and gripped it tight. Her hands, made for war, trembled with uncertainty. "What if I'm not meant for this?" she asked. Riker took a slow breath. "Then you'll keep trying until you are." The training began. Each morning started with balance drills. Not strength. Not power, just breathing, movement, control. Riker showed her how to feel every step, not just stomp through it. At first, she hated it. She fell. She slipped. She got frustrated. One morning, she slammed her staff on the floor and roared, "I was born to fight." Riker didn't flinch. They just said quietly, "And now you're learning to fight for something." Those words silenced her anger. She picked the staff up again and tried once more. Over time, she changed. Her steps grew softer, her grip more relaxed. She stopped gritting her teeth during training. She even smiled once. Not the wild, bloodthirsty grin from her arena days, a real smile, the kind that came from peace. One night, she stood on the observation deck, staring out into the black sea of stars. Riker joined her, arms crossed. "You're different," he said. Zylara nodded slowly. "I feel like I've just started living." She looked at him, eyes bright. "I want to protect people," she said. Then her voice lowered, almost a whisper. "I want to protect you." Riker was silent for a moment. Then he smiled softly. "You already have." But the galaxy wasn't quiet. For long, a distress signal came in, faint, panicked, desperate. A refugee ship under attack by pirates, civilians aboard. No weapons, no escape. Riker locked eyes with her. No words were needed. They launched within minutes. The pirate ship was large, ugly, covered in weapons and scars. It loomed over the smaller vessel like a beast ready to feast. As Riker and Zylara boarded the ship, alarms blared and metal groaned. Zylara moved like a shadow, silent, precise. Not once did she roar or charge. She fought to disable, not destroy, to protect, not punish. When she came face to face with the pirate captain, a brutal, four-armed beast with a scarred face, he laughed. "You're the Gladiator," he sneered. "I've seen your matches, expected more blood." Zylara looked him dead in the eye. "So did I," she said, and then she disarmed him with a single move. Did she kill him? No. She tied him up and dragged him to the escape pod when the hostages saw her. They didn't scream, they didn't run. They clapped, and one child ran up to her, another little girl. But this one didn't ask if she was a monster. She whispered. Zylara knelt down, her throat tight. "No," she said softly. Then she glanced at Riker. "But I'm learning." Back on their ship, with the pirate threat gone and the civilians safe, Riker handed her a small box. Inside was a badge, silver, with the human military symbol on it, a mark given only to those who had earned deep trust. She stared at it for a long time. "I don't deserve this," she said. Riker shrugged. "Neither did I, not at first." She looked at him, something burning in her chests, something stronger than pride, deeper than victory. Then teach me everything, she whispered. I don't want to be what I was. I want to be what you are. He smiled. You're already better. And in that moment, the galaxy shifted, not with fire or war, but with quiet hope, because the strongest gladiator in the galaxy was now a protector.